Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Outpost. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, you have Tobin learning how to control his Kinge. And I love that it's like, I figured you would want to keep that like super top secret, but I think it speaks volumes that the first person he opens up to about that is Tobin. I mean, is Munt. The fact is he's doing it around Munt. Munt's like, what are you looking at? He's like, Munt. And he's like, Munt's like, I could have jumped further than that. Just shut up, Munt. But it's like, it is interesting. Like, I guess it's one of those things of once you stop trying and it just happens. Because I guess it's also like, I guess if you want something bad enough, I guess the way Felista kind of comments on it, it's like, right, you have to will it. And to him, it's like, right, I could use a drink right now. He just wants one so badly just to ease his mind about everything that he ends up teleporting. And, you know, it's like, hey! I also love that he made Mutt his like advisor and servant because it's like he needs someone to bathe him and stuff like that and advise him. And it's like, yeah, because obviously like they went through a lot last season too, and they grew, became pretty close. So you know, it's like, right, you're the only person I can really trust right now, Mutt. Which I'm like, oh, that's so sweet that like, you know, Mutt's like in this advisory role to a certain extent. I think that's so interesting. Obviously, after this assassination attempt, Felista is on edge. I mean, it's kind of sad because you kind of feel a little bad for her, but she kind of created the circumstances herself by, like, being so eager to take the crown and stuff like that. Being a little power hungry, like, because it's not like you are the best fit for the job. You just, it felt a little too opportunistic, in my opinion. Like, I don't know. I mean, once again, I think she was pissed at kind of the world and everything, Tobin being dead, and feeling like Gwen kind of got all the, like, because it's also like, once again, she kind of, yeah, they were in a better place, which is so sad considering like you and Gwen were in a good place. So like for you to immediately going on that smack talking after she died is just more of a middle finger than like, but regardless. What I thought was interesting though is Felista's attempt to try and woo the people. You know, before she's kind of been ruling with an iron fist, which has led to resentment, which is interesting because technically the assassination attempt on her has nothing to do with the people who are against you. Yes, there are people who are against you, but no one's making any move like that because, I mean, and it's an interesting parallel you can draw to that Prime Order officer who had the Red Kinge before her. Like, it's like he ruled the Outpost with an iron fist, and for you to kind of be doing that as well and not recognizing that you're doing that you are a little power hungry. I mean, you know, absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? So I just think it's the irony is lost. No, I think the irony is lost on her of just how she's been at. But she plans on like, right, rather than ruling through fear, I'm gonna rule through love. So she tries to talk to the Black Bloods. It's like, well, what do you want? I can give you whatever you want. I can give you this and that. But like Talon's the one that's like, or if we take anything she's offering, it shows that the Black Bloods have a price that we can be paid. But for Ren and Zed, it's an opportunity to do good by their people. It's like we can bring the rest of the Black Bloods through, give us a place to call our own here. And she's like, yeah, sure. I mean, it's not like she really cares. It's like, it's not like, oh, I'm doing this because I believe in the Black Bloods and I believe. It's like, no. She makes it even clear. Like, she's doing this for political favor in the sense that she'll have the Black Blood support. Obviously, Talon's kind of giving her like the shade eyes because like she doesn't like Felista. I mean, she just obviously like she knew Gwen. Felista is not someone she really knows that well, and all she really knows of Felista is her actions. And yes, she's done selfless things in certain regards, but a lot of her actions more recently have been selfish. Once again, you talk mad crap about a friend and be like, oh, I'm willing to do whatever Gwen couldn't. I mean, to be fair, Gwen had, yes, her reluctancy because, well, you know, the whole Rev thing, but also there's a situation where more Black Bloods came through. What did they do? They subjugated the humans. So, and that's why, like, you know, Gwen had her reluctancy, and that's why Talon has hers. But it's like, these are still our people. It's like, we can get them under control, especially with Ren as the High Priestess they'll follow. It's like, but the people that Talon's the most worried about are the Black Fist, and it's like, will they answer to Ren? Which Ren's like, I don't know, but what other choice do we have? We can't leave our people there. Because it is interesting, because at first it's like, why is Rin so suddenly like, all right, I'll take up this position of High Priestess? But it's also because, like, right, it's the history of their people, but I guess it's also, like, her current circumstances, too. Like, maybe she's hoping to read up a little bit more about, like, well, there's also, like, the visions that have been had, and, like, it's just, because it's just clear, like, she knows so little about their people and their history. Like, her mom was, like, well more versed and knew about all of that, so it's like, I think for her it feels like a little bit like of a shortcoming, so it's like, I need to learn as much as possible so I can actually help our people, whether it is the visions that Talon and Zed and other people with Kinjis are having, or whether it's the situation with me and Janzo, like, you know, pregnancy stuff like that, like being a black blood, being pregnant, but also being pregnant with a child that's half black blood, half human. I mean, once again, we don't know, like, whether the black blood, like, you know, if it's like an invincible thing where it's like, right, even if you're half, you're pretty much whole because that black blood is so pure that, like, it overtakes the human DNA, or whether it is kind of more sand from DBZ where it's like, nah, it's pretty straight down the middle. Just interesting stuff like that to kind of find out would be interesting. So I'm sure a lot of those are contributing factors to it. But there's also the thing of, like, right, should we really be bringing more Lakiri through? Because they've been kind of going, wow, we don't know. It's like, oh, well, it's like, what are we going to do? Put them in stables with, like the horses? It's like, we don't know that if we did bring them over that we'd be able to control them, because it's like, we should probably just leave them in the plane of ash if we're going to bring over Black Bloods. But it's like, a lot of Black Bloods aren't going to be too happy about leaving their Lakiri behind, but still. So, even though Talon has a reluctancy about this, like, she's kind of outnumbered in this regard. It's kind of like the decision's kind of made. So, there's that. It's actually interesting because Mutt's actually the one who gives Tobin the idea about, like, hey, you need someone you need an investigation. I know the perfect person. I was like, right. His dad was the one who handled all the investigations in the Outpost, so Garrett still is reluctant because it's like, right, I'm not going to serve the three in any shape or form. But Tobin talks to him and it's like, okay, now, like, the fact is, I have three's Kinj. He's dead, but it's like, yeah, but 2 is still alive. Like, I trust you, I don't trust Felista, and I just don't trust 2 as well. It's like, do you know the price that was paid to bring you back? He was like, yeah, a realm soldier. And I was like, oh, because we know you know how many people were sacrificed. You made a whole point to Felista last episode of, like, 20 soldiers die. You had your reluctancy about it, but then immediately just seemed like you kind of got over it. I mean, I think it's that self-preservation where it's like, yeah, you sacrificed yourself and everything, but at the same time, it's like, you would rather live than be dead. So I guess it's also the side note of, like, yeah, it just shows you how much Felista loves you, that she's willing to sacrifice 20 other people's lives for yours. I mean, I'm sure in his mind he does some, like, Olympic level gymnastics of trying to justify, like, you know, but once again, it's like, I was about to say, like, it doesn't seem like he's as concerned about it. It seemed like he just moved on, but to be fair, he's drinking and stuff, so I think it's a combination of everything. Like, it is kind of weighing him down, the weight of the crown, Gwen being gone, and just kind of like the hating, just everything kind of not going right, getting called out by Garrett later on. Because, like, when Garrett was dealing with the whole Luna thing, which, understandable, like, it's like, I mean, to be fair, you guys shared a cell, you buddied up a little bit, so it's just kind of interesting, but Luna's like, oh, you're the gate marshal now, so obviously I'm gonna be, like, you're here to arrest me or something. It's like, you didn't give me a chance to talk, you immediately attacked me, with now Janzo and, like, Talon ends up chastising him about later on. It's like, to be fair, she bugged out of nowhere and attacked me. I wasn't looking for her, I was looking for you. I didn't even know she was gonna be here. But the thing is, I was an idiot at first, like, when those bodies were found by Luna and Garrett, I was like, oh, was it the Lakiri? I completely forgot about the whole, like, oh, the symbol on their head being, like, from to draining their souls away. I didn't pick up on that. It should have been out, because I was like, oh, are those Black Bloods? What? I'm so stupid. I was like, of course. I guess I never thought about it. It's like, oh, you need to, those were 20 bodies, like, what are you going to do if you dumped them? Garrett immediately recognized what they were. Obviously, Luna, because, I mean, I guess, like, seeing that many dead bodies, the smell and everything, I think it was just, like, overwhelming. The sad thing is, like, for Garrett, it's like, right, him and many people have already seen so much death, despite her being kind of an assassin. I doubt she's ever really fully killed anyone. Like, I think Talon, who knows, maybe she has, but it seems like Talon might have been her first target, so she's probably never killed anyone before, so, like, seeing someone dead is just kind of, like, too much. I mean, she's still like a child, you know, so, well, because she says, like, I'm 18, but, you know, still, obviously, even then she's not even 100% sure, but still, I think that's her first time really seeing dead bodies, and even if it's not, probably the first time seeing that many together. Like, that's going to be seared in the back of your mind. But Talon does bring up something interesting where it's like, right, like, because, like, for Garrett, it's like, why are you so protective of this girl? I wonder, does he know that that's that Luna's the Dragonman's sister? I don't know if he knows that or not. But it's like, why are you protecting her so much? Like, why do you care so much about it? Is it because she reminds you of you? And it's like, she doesn't remind you of you? I mean, when you actually break it down, there is a lot of similarities in that regard of, like, both of them kind of having all three of them having rough upbringings and kind of being alone in certain regards, especially Garrett with his mom gone and his brother, and just like very complicated relationship he had with his father. Like, he kind of had to be on his own. I mean, especially considering like he rose through the ranks of like trying to prove himself in the Prime Order, being a part of the Prime Order so he could be a part of the Resistance and stuff like that, you know. So there's a lot there in Talon growing up alone, but that's also a shared thing that they have too, is like they all siblings, you know. All three have lost siblings, so they know that pain all too well. So there are parallels that can be drawn. But even Garrett's like, right, I'm the gate marshal, so you want me to protect the girl I was literally hired to find? It's like, yes, just promise me you will, because Talon's got to go to the Plane of Ash with Ran and Zed, which you have Janzo being so reluctant, because it's like, right, he's like, fine, I'll go, but she's like, you don't know what to specifically look for, you won't know what's important to our people amongst the religious texts and stuff like that, so it has to be me. And I love that he's like, I want to, but you and our baby, I want to make sure that you're okay. And she's like, oh, that's so sweet. And she's kissing him, and I'm like, she's kind of buttering you up and just trying to like, oh, she's like, that's so sweet. And he's just like, but you're not going to change my mind, I'm still going. So but circling back to the Tobin thing really quickly, I love the fact is that it's like, right, the whole point of him not drinking was because he was a better person when he wasn't drinking, but now he's convincing Mutt to get him to like some alcohol. It's like, right, you got the connections and stuff, and then Janzo gets inspired by it. He's like, oh, the fact is, if Tobin wants it, there's other people who will pay a higher premium, so it's like, oh, I'm gonna make some money. And I was immediately like, you do realize you sound just like your mother right now. And I love that even Mutt calls him out, like being like, oh, that's like mom. And he's like, no. He's like, no, not like mom. He's like, well, not like mom. Because I'm like, the way you're scheming right now and how happy you got about like all the money opportunity. Granted, it's about protecting your family. Like, oh, you need money come in because you got a baby on the way. Sure, but it's still like how excited he got about it. It's like, oh yeah. And you kind of doing something illegal like underneath like the royal like nose, essentially. It's like, yeah, it's just like Eleanor and her Calypso business. Granted, yours is less likely to cause issues like Eleanor's business, but still, granted, to get a lot of people locked up in a lot of trouble, sure. But I love, because that's so interesting, because like Janzo had his moments of cowardice, but I guess it's because like this is something that's low key. He can be a little cowardly and fit like, he can be skittish about like it, but it's also because of the nature of everything. It kind of works with his personality being very skittish, like kind of doing something illegal and trying not to get caught, always being kind of on edge. More that aspects of his personality kind of works well with doing something illegal, because it's like, right, you're always going to be careful about it. But once again, let's see if Eleanor rubs off on him a little too much, and he might get a little like, oh, I'm liking his power and control a little bit. Like he kind of gets sucked up in like all the money and like the business of it all. We'll see whether he loses some of that altruism. I mean, granted, it's like, it's kind of a stupid thing that the Prime Order like bans alcohol. I mean, well, to be fair, alcohol was banned in reality at one point in time. I say that as someone who's dabbled in alcohol in the past, but not a big drinker. So once again, it's just an interesting thing. But circling back to Tobin and Garrett, where Garrett confronts Tobin because it's like, right, you lied to me. There were 20 men that died. Because, like, Tobin's just kind of like, well, she did it for me. It's like, if you obviously don't 100% agree with it, at the very least, you know it's wrong. Because if that's the case, you would have been honest with Garrett, but you knew Garrett would call you out for the fact that 20 people died. But it's like Gwen would never have done that. She would have never sacrificed other people for herself or for someone else. It's like she would die first. She did die for us. So, and it's just kind of like, you know, Felista. And then like then Tobin kind of gets a little angry and just like, do what I order you to do, you know, and just. It's no longer the buddy kinship that they have because being the king and everything now. And like I said, I think it is a lot of what Garrett said is weighing on him. I think that's why he started drinking. Granted, he stressed out beforehand, but I think that just made him go like, I need to drink. I need to drink. Which could potentially lead to him backpedaling as a person. Like, he did a lot of growing and a lot of developing when he stopped drinking. He became a better person. And a lot of that, I think, because he is a better person now, is in heavy conflict with who Felista kind of wants him to be, because Felista is straight up power hungry now, and part of me wonders, is that just part of Felista's personality being like exponentially like amplified by the Kinge, or is it just the Kinge itself kind of gaining more sentient control? Because at first, like I said, she tried to be like, oh yeah, let me hand out this gold, and the jury is like, oh, little kid, this will look great on you and stuff like that. I just want to, you know, so many were, you know, affected by the war and the battle, so I'm trying to give back. And one guy doesn't agree with her, and what does she do? She basically kills him in front of everybody, you know, ruling with an iron fist. You have two whispering ears. Oh my God, that was great. You have to rule with an iron fist. And that's the thing, like, Felista isn't the most capable leader, because, like, having an advisor is one thing, but it's like all you're doing is following her lead. It's like she's pointing you in a direction and you're following it, like, without question. Like, at least Gwen, like, she listened to other people, but she also made her own decision. She'll like, all right, this is my thought, but I'm going to listen to some of the other advice. I might not agree with it, but, she would at least listen. And, like, Felista's listening to the wrong person and getting seduced by it, especially when she, like, the God speaks to her and everything, the quote-unquote God that speaks to him, and it's like, oh my God, she's like, yeah, the God's spoken to me, so I know I'm on the right path. It's like, oh yeah, Felista's definite. I mean, Felista, it's her own insecurities that have brought her to where she is. It's the getting a taste of that power is one thing, because I think for the first time in a long time she's felt powerful. She's in a position where people have to, and she thought it would change everything, but it's like, oh, rather than getting the praise and love that Gwen did, there was not the resistance to Gwen that there is. I mean, granted, with certain things, the Black Blood stuff to a certain extent, like, that's about it, but like on a more general scale, like, more people were very positive towards Gwen and Rosamund than like Felista. Like, she doesn't have like the love. That's the difference. You rule through fear. Gwen didn't have to. She had love. Like, yeah, she made some choices that, yeah, it's like, oh, that's kind of like, there's a little kind of, once again, Iron Fist rule a little bit, but it wasn't all the time. Like, it was little moments here and there. It was usually love and respect that she garnished from her people that Felista just hasn't quite gotten there yet, because she's trying to rush things rather than kind of taking things slow and steady. She's rushing things, a combination because two wants it that way, but also she kind of wants to get to the point where just like, oh, I'm able to be okay. And plus, the whole assassination attempt makes her go like, have zero tolerance for everything. So like, she's just kind of like, no, like, people are out to get me, I'm gonna get them before they get me, which that's an interesting conversation to have, considering the confines of this episode when it comes to the Plane of Ash, but we'll get to that soon enough. We had Tobin accidentally teleporting to the Three's God, and it speaks to him, and she's like, once again, so interesting. Like, I wonder if the other one in a different location, because he woke up, but we haven't cut to him at all. We've only focused on the one with the white Kinge. And I thought was so interesting is, like, she speaks to the one in Tobin. She's like, I'll awaken you or something like that. Luckily, he popped out of there. But that also might answer a question I had the entire time. Like, why at any point in time did they just go to the next body rather than, like, go back to their OG bodies? And now I'm like, well, with that being answered, like, the way she's talking to them, like, I'm gonna awaken you, means, like, I don't think, like, either the white and black Kinge, like, maybe by in being used against each other, like I brought up before, maybe that led them back to their OG bodies, and maybe she has the power to, like, bring the other Kinges back to their original bodies. But what I was thinking is, this seemed like it might be inferring, like, they don't have any bodies. Like, the other, 5? Their bodies are destroyed. All that's left are the Kinges, so like their human hosts maybe it's going to be a thing of, oh, don't worry, I'm gonna awaken you, and that Kinge is going to completely take, like, what those Kinges really are, who they are, their sentience will completely awaken and take over the human host. Kind of similar to Yavala, but I mean, to be fair, that was also just like Yavala just being power hungry and stuff like that. Another parallel, I don't think Phyllis is quite drawing either. That's what I'm thinking. But for her, you know, Tobin's like, oh, that thing's a monster, it's not a god. But she's like, no, we're down the right path. And it's like, you know, and so he's kind of getting sucked into that belief. But like Felicitas really like getting lost in all of this. Once again, just very much like Yavala in that regard. Once again, it's like, where does the person start and where does the Kinge start in these like particular situations? But this does set Garrett's mind to be like, right, he's not going to turn Luna in because, like, why am I going to get her arrested for the thing I'm going to do? It's like, well, you're going to kill Felicity. It's like, yeah. Like, I'm not loyal to her. I'm loyal to Tobin. Granted, Tobin's loyal to Felicity, and also he's not the man you kind of hoped that he would be. He's still got more humanity left in him than it seems like Felicity, because Felicity feels like it's kind of drifting away to an extent. We'll see. So Garrett's going to use, I love that he's like, wait, you're up to something illegal, Janzo. Janzo's like, well, if you ask me post everything, whether or not like I was doing something illegal, it's like, no. And it's like, he's like, you are selling basically alcohol again. He was like, oh, how dare you accuse me? I'm not going to arrest you, Janzo. He's like, okay, then yes, I am selling alcohol again. It's like, good. It's going to be the perfect meeting spot to get people who are loyal to Janzo, and then we'll wait for like Talon and the others to get back to decide what we're going to do. Which, speaking of Talon and them, they return to the Plains of Ash, and it's not what they were hoping to find, because a whole bunch of Lakiri, and not just a whole bunch of Lakiri, kind of all the Lakiri, and most of the Black Bloods are dead. The Black Fist went on a killing spree, a massacre, which immediately the Black Fist, the one in particular, she was like, oh, the reason why I did that is because they were going to strike first. So we had, like, were they really trying to kill you, or were you just using that as an excuse or provocation? It's like, well, you are kind of like the radical extremist group. It's like, we didn't believe that you'd come back, so we had to do what we had to survive. But it's like, survive by, like, you literally have genocided your own species. But I think it's like, no, it's a us versus them mentality, even though you're all Black Bloods, you know? So that's going to weigh on Talon a little bit, because it's like, right, she was always so reluctant to like bring the Black Bloods over, and if she had been a little quicker, maybe more of their people would still be alive. So I don't know if that resentment's going to come from Ren, Zed, or any of the other survivors, or, you know, I'm sure her own guilt will eat away at her because of that. I don't know. Obviously, she also learns about one of the Black Bloods. Well, first and foremost, isn't that the first time? Is that the first time Ren's ever killed anybody? Because like when she stabbed, what's her name, Issa, it just kind of made her. She kind of like dropped the sword and was kind of shocked by what she did. I think that might be the first time she's ever killed anyone. But it's like, right, because Talon was like, why did she say like when she was like the three of us, but then she's like, oh, you'll make four, because obviously she knew by Ren's ear tips that she was pregnant, and now Talon pieced it together. It's like, why didn't Janzo tell me? It's like, I told him not to, and he's being so overprotective. But for her, it's like, I wish I had my mom. And then she was kind of like, right, my mom ended up being the evil person that she was. I just wish I had family around, you know, to help me through all this, because like without the Black Bloods around, like I'm going to end up going through this alone. But you know, you have Talon be like, no, you're not alone. You got Janzo and you got me. And even Zed when he's not being a complete ass. Which I'm like, yeah, dude, yeah. You know, a little small family, you know? It's like we're all in this together in that regard. So, Zed finds Corvin, and Corvin's a little crazy. I thought it was going to be an issue. I'm like, because Corvin he's kind of obsessed with Ren. I'm like, if he sees that Ren's pregnant, will that be an issue for him? Didn't seem like it. I thought that would have been an issue, but it wasn't. Because at the end of the day, it's like, he cares for Ren. I don't know if it's like necessarily love, but it's also like, right, you showed me kindness, and you took care of me, so like, you will always be a special person to me. Whether it's like necessarily love or just pure devotion, it doesn't matter, but because of his devotion to Ren, it's like, right, these texts that belong to your mother, I grabbed them, I protected them. Ren will fail without me. And it's like, yeah, like I got these. More Blackfish showed up, but other Black Bloods as well to protect them. So they've also hidden the children away. So everyone's ready to go. And just to give you one middle finger before we're out of here, Corvin ends up getting killed, sadly. And it's just like, man, Zed did everything to come back to his brother, and even his brother would be like, thank you for keeping your promise, dear brother, for coming back to me. It's like, at least he died like him and his brother have a better relationship. It's just like, no, like you had the limited amount of time last season, near the end of last season, and now you had all the time in the world now. You could finally be together again. But also, like, Corvin was going to be the same anyway, but it's like, no, it's like, for that family to kind of be taken from him like that, it sucks, at the end like that. And it was just all around. It's like, yeah, you got your mom's text, but most of your people are dead. Most of the people left in the plane of ash are the Black Blood, so I don't know if that's going to be an issue going forward. It's just not that happy trip. I mean, it's never going to be a happy trip going to the plane of ashes anyway. But I mean, to be fair, like, I'm sure everyone, Black Fist included, probably didn't want to come to that other realm at the time while Yavala was doing her thing, because we don't know in the grand scheme of things how long it's been. Because I know, like, the first episode of the season wasn't too long after the season finale, because it was still, like, pretty recent after Gwen's death. But subsequently since then, we don't know, like, whether it's been just another couple of days, whether it's been a few weeks since everything with Yavala was resolved. But granted, you didn't want to be here around that time with the mind control thing going about. But another element to this is convincing Felista to arrest people who are, like, don't agree with her reign. And so that happens. And then 2, the moment she showed up there, I immediately thought, like, oh, she's going to try to be like, oh, look at Felista. She's going power crazy, and look what she's done. But me, I'll serve you. I'll protect you. I'm looking out for your best interest. I thought she was going to kind of try and do a power grab right now. It's like, no, she doesn't really need it because she technically has all the power, because it's like, technically, Felista's her pawn, and because of that, Tobin's kind of her pawn, so it's like, technically, both of them are under, like, 2's control to a certain extent. But I thought, like, she was going to try and grab for power, but it's like, right, having a king and queen, like legitimate, like, the legitimate, like, king and queen on the throne, at least, like, Felista being a legitimate, like, rightful heir, it makes it so that it's kind of like, okay, that benefits me more than me just kind of running rampant like I did. Because also, like, she already has the Red Kinge, and it's like, trying to, like, kill them to get 2 other people to replace 1 and 3. It's like, don't need to kind of do that when I have a more legitimate person on the throne. It legitimizes what I'm doing. So, very similar, and I guess in that same regard to, like, Eleanor when she was Gwen's advisor for a period. But, in the end, you had, 2 draining the life of all those people locked away, and it's like, oh, this will go, like, I wonder what the grand purpose is. I guess if enough souls are gathered, she's planning on feeding it to their gods or something. What, like I said, what the capacity for that is, we don't know. Like, whether that is what she's doing, or whether she's, like, souping herself up for the purpose. Because it does seem like you're going to need all 7 Kinges to awaken them. Because, like, the little seal that's on her has 7 slots. So I'm assuming, like, all 7 the Kinge will have to come together. And once they're all kind of in the same room, and then that'll unlock and she'll be free. So maybe each Kinge, like, maybe she's powering up her Kinge in anticipation of that, or who knows. Like, it's just, I'd assume it's just, oh, I'm going to feed these lives to our gods. Once again, how 1, 2, and 3 knew what they knew, I forgot. I'm sure that kind of got covered in season 2, but I don't remember how they know what they knew. Obviously, the blacksmith knew what he knew because of texts he had found. Granted, most of the Black Blood related stuff in this realm had gotten wiped out anyway, so there was very little to gather, because all the all the real remaining stuff is obviously in the Plains of Ashes now that, now Ren has it. But I'm curious what that conversation is going to look like next episode, potentially when, like, Tobin sees that, like, wait, you killed all these people, Felista, are you really okay with it? Because she's not the woman he fell in love with anymore. She's slowly, that person's slowly disappearing. Like I said, she can be selfish in the past, but she's also shown how selfless she can be in certain regards too. But like I said, that's kind of fading away. Like I said, where Felista ends and where the Kinge begins, Especially with all the, well, I guess you can make the argument where does Felicity end and where does 2 begin when it comes to like how she's rolling. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all this ultimately ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.